Picture this. You are crammed on a crowded train at the end of a long day. It is dead quiet. Suddenly, the person next to you unleashes a massive window-rattling sneeze. What happens next? Without missing a beat, a total stranger looks up from their phone and mutters, "Bless you." The sneezer nods. The world moves on. Why do we actually do this? Think about it for a second. We do not have a universal polite script for someone who coughs or burps or gets the hiccups. But a nose explosion? That gets an automatic mandatory blessing. We all just do it, like we were handed the exact same script on our first day on Earth. It is polite, it is incredibly quick, and it is entirely strange when you really stop and look at it. Why do we feel this deep social obligation to honor a sneeze? Give me 10 minutes. The true story behind this tiny daily habit is older, stranger, and far more practical than you think. Let us start by rewinding all the way back to the ancient world, specifically ancient Greece and Rome. Long before anyone was talking about germs or viruses, a sneeze was not a medical event. It was considered a powerful message. A sudden, violent sneeze was seen as a direct telegram from the gods. There is an incredible story from the 4th century before the Common Era. A Greek historian and soldier named Xenophon was leading an army of 10,000 men. They were stranded deep in hostile territory, surrounded and terrified. Xenophon stands up to give a desperate, rallying speech to his troops, trying to convince them they can actually fight their way home. Right in the middle of his big dramatic pause, a soldier in the crowd sneezes. Now, today, that ruins the moment. But back then, the entire army cheered. They believed that because a sneeze comes from the head, which is the seat of the mind and soul, it was an involuntary sign of divine approval. The gods were literally saying yes. The troops prayed, packed up, and marched out. That ancient battlefield moment tells us something completely fascinating. The social reflex to stop and acknowledge a sneeze out loud is ancient. Long before anybody was saying "bless you," and long before Christianity even existed, a sneeze had undeniable power. People felt an overwhelming instinct that they had to mark the moment verbally. Now let us jump forward to Rome in the year 590. The city is a nightmare. The river has flooded, crops have rotted, and a brutal plague is moving through the streets. People are terrified of the very air they breathe. The new pope, Gregory the Great, desperately calls the entire city to pray for survival. Pope Gregory organizes 7 massive solemn processions. Thousands of people walk through the plague-ridden streets, carrying candles and begging for mercy as they literally drop from illness along the way. This is not a rumor. It is a deeply documented historical event, and it sets the dark, panicked mood for what happens to sneezes next. Here is the legend you have probably heard at a dinner party. Supposedly, during this exact plague, Pope Gregory commanded all citizens to say "God bless you" whenever anyone sneezed, to ward off the disease. It perfectly fits the moment. But there is a massive catch. Not a single text from his lifetime says he ever gave that order. The tidy origin story is a historical retrofit that shows up centuries later. Even if the Pope did not write it down, the timing of the habit makes total sense. When a deadly plague is hovering over your neighborhood, every cough feels risky. The air itself feels like an enemy. A violent sneeze is basically a biological fire alarm going off in the room. You want a tiny verbal shield you can deploy in 1 second. That invisible shield gets a whole new meaning in early modern Europe. Back then, people did not view the body as a closed biological machine. They saw it more like a leaky house that contained your soul. Your mouth and nose were open windows. In that worldview, a massive sneeze throws every spiritual window open at exactly the same time. Because your body was momentarily wide open, people genuinely feared that your soul could slip out, or worse, a passing demon could slip right in. So a quick, "God bless you" acted like a spiritual latch. It was a magic word that clicked the door shut in a split second. It sounds like a fairy tale to us now, but it felt like vital personal security to them. By the time we reach the late Middle Ages and early Renaissance, this oral tradition finally starts showing up on paper in English. You start seeing characters saying "bless you" or "God bless you" after sneezes in stage plays, in casual dialogue, and in proverb collections. There is no single genius inventor of the phrase. It became a habit on the page because it was already a massive, undeniable habit in the streets. While Europe was slowly figuring out its folklore, another culture had already locked down a brilliant, permanent solution. In the Islamic world, sneeze etiquette was clearly written down in canonical texts by the 9th century. When a person sneezes, they say, Alhamdulillah, which means praise be to God. The person who hears it immediately replies, Yarhamuk Allah, meaning may God have mercy on you. Then, to close the loop, the original sneezer answers back with another blessing. These lines are precise, they are elegant, and they are incredibly durable. You can hear this exact exchange in a modern coffee shop today, word for word, exactly as it was laid out. That is over 13 centuries of pure, unbroken muscle memory for a bodily function. Just a quick nudge while we are walking through history. If you are enjoying this dive into the strange backstories of the things we do every day, make sure to subscribe and keep us in your pocket. We love uncovering the little origins that make daily life suddenly make sense. Now, back to the sneeze. As time marched on and science began to quietly replace superstition, the reflex stayed, but the theology shifted. Many cultures decided to swap out the blessing for a simple wish of good health. The timing of the reflex was identical. The social courtesy was identical. Only the vocabulary changed, sending the message that I see you and I hope you do not get sick. This brings us to a heavy hitter in the sneeze world. Gesundheit. It is a German word that literally just translates to health. During the huge waves of European immigration in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, German and Yiddish speakers brought this wonderful word to American streets. By 1914, it was officially tracked in English dictionaries. Immigrants used it at corner stores, newspapers started printing it, and kids traded it on playgrounds. Before long, Bless You and Gesundheit were living happily side by side in the United States. Today, the core instinct remains exactly the same, but you get to choose your script. Whether you want to guard a soul or just wish away a cold, everyone knows exactly what you mean. So why did this strange little reflex survive for thousands of years? First, it is an incredibly practical alarm bell. A sneeze often genuinely means illness is entering the room, and your brain naturally perks up. Second, it is highly effective social glue. It takes a slightly gross, awkward bodily interruption and instantly smooths it over with a tiny moment of shared kindness. It costs nothing, and habits like that tend to stick around forever. But here is the absolute best part of the story. Modern science eventually walked into the room with a high-speed camera and proved our paranoid ancestors completely right. Researchers at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, led by fluid dynamics expert Lydia Burawiba, filmed the exact physics of a human sneeze. It turns out, a sneeze is not just heavy, wet droplets falling straight to the floor. Instead, a sneeze produces a violent, turbulent, warm gas cloud. This buoyant cloud traps microscopic drops and aerosols, carrying them across the room much farther than anyone ever guessed. Under the right conditions, studies show that a sneeze cloud can travel up to 7 or 8 meters. The big droplets fall fast, but the tiny invisible ones ride that turbulent cloud all the way across the office. So those terrified folks in medieval Europe? Their fear of bad air was not crazy at all. History simply swapped out the demons for droplets. Their ancient caution maps perfectly onto a biological reality that you can test today with a high-speed camera, a laser sheet, and a fog machine. When science teachers do this demonstration in classrooms today, the students always gasp. It is the exact same gasp that once made people clutch for a blessing. Before we wrap this up, let us retire a few stubborn myths you might have heard. First, your heart absolutely does not stop when you sneeze. The pressure in your chest changes, which can make your heart rhythm blip for a second, but you do not flatline. Second, the famous nursery rhyme Ring o' Roses is not secretly about the Black Death and sneezing. Historians have totally debunked that Victorian myth. And finally, that fun fact that sneezes always travel at exactly 100 miles per hour? Not true. The speed varies wildly from person to person and sneeze to sneeze. What really matters for your health is not the absolute speed of the blast, but the lingering floating gas plume we just talked about. It is the invisible cloud you need to watch out for. Now fold all of this history together. When you say bless you today, you are operating a 1-second time machine. You are echoing desperate Roman plague processions, superstitious soul latches, and centuries of ancient folklore all in 2 syllables. When you say Gesundheit, you are participating in the exact same ancient reflex, but wearing a secular immigrant-inherited coat. So the very next time you hear that familiar explosive sound on a quiet train or in a busy office, you will know the massive backstory behind it. You might want to take one polite, highly scientific step backwards to dodge the turbulent gas cloud, but definitely still say your line. Smile. Move on. You just took part in a beautiful human ritual that learned new lines and kept its job for over 2,000 years. If you like clear, fascinating stories about the hidden origins of the ordinary stuff around us, make sure to subscribe and look around the channel. We have videos on why keyboards are entirely out of order, how the modern weekend was invented, and even the origin of the high five. Drop a like if this video made your next train ride a little smarter. Take care, stay healthy, and see you next time. And see you